What is up, guys? Chris here again with another Eden Zero manga chapter review. And I have to say, this was a fairly good chapter, and Eden Zero has been giving us a lot of good chapters lately. And this one has not only a setup for a pretty awesome fight and giving Wise some really great moments, and something that I wish I managed to put in my Wise Explained video, which it should be up within a week or two. And it's a little late for me to. I might add this in at some point, but the video is already a bit longer than it should be. I'll see, but yeah, we get some nice setup for Wise's fight. We get some stuff with Rebecca. We get the other oceans interacting with her, and we also get a potential look at how things could end for Rebecca and possibly the Eden Zero crew. And I'll get way into that later in the video. But before all that, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell for updates on future videos, as well as seeing when I upload next. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at The Greek Weeb, as I am going to be more active on my social medias from now on, particularly Twitter, as when the new chapters come out and I read them, I will just give general thoughts on what I thought about them before I record these next chapter reviews. And also, don't forget to check out my Patreon and Coffee accounts, Patreon in particular, as I have some pretty nice benefits for a Patreon-only Discord that allows for video submissions, ideas for videos, access to patron-specific polls, and the like. I really hope you can help me grow this channel and help make this channel a bit more lucrative for me, as I am inching closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, and I am very close to 600 at the point of me recording. And I can only see this channel going up from here. And also don't forget to check out the Eden Zero Explained videos. At the point of this video up, I should have Ether Gear Explained and Shiki Explained somewhere on this channel, and they're doing fairly well. I got Rebecca coming up pretty soon, as well as Wise and Pino. So look forward to those. But with all that out of the way, let's get back to the video. Last week we got basically set up for the fight against the member of the Six, who is using the Ether Gear Horus Eye of Horus, that seemingly can hypnotize people into doing whatever he says. Pino manages to snap Rebecca and Wise out of it with an EMP blast, but after the Ether Gear returns to this member of the Six, I'm sorry I can't remember this guy's name, I feel like it's going to be very difficult for me to pronounce, so I'm just going to call him Eye of Horus from now on. I know it's kind of weird, I'll get his name right eventually. But anyway, Eye of Horus ends up using his Ether Gear on Pino, Happy, and once again on Moscoy. And the chapter ends with him facing off against Rebecca and Wise, saying that he's basically going to unleash the fatal hypnosis. And with that, we now start this chapter. Chapter 149, Powers Lost. Which is very good foreshadowing for how this chapter plays out. But anyway, Rebecca and Wise are staring at their enemy as the rest of their team has been succumbed to his hypnotic Ether Gear. Eye of Horus states that for you a suggestion that will guide you to your deaths. And Wise is beginning to think how this is going to happen. There's no way an Ether Gear could actually give him whatever he wants, whatever he says he wants. He says that there has to be some sort of catch, a rule at how the hypnosis works. Which, yes, something I speculated in the last video, and how Wise is going to counteract it. He says, maybe it's not even really hypnosis. But then, the member of the oceans just states, now die. As now Wise and Rebecca are beginning to choke themselves to death by their own hands, as they've fallen underneath his hypnosis. Rebecca says, as she's gasping for air, she's saying that she can't stop herself, but she ends up kind of liking it. As apparently this hypnosis, he is actually making them enjoying this act of strangling themselves. This is very, very twisted. Like they're getting some sort of sick pleasure from doing all this. As White just says, I want to die, as he begins to laugh as he's choking himself. But as this goes on, Lyra, another member of the Six, tells this guy to stop, to let her have the girl, to let her have Rebecca. She states that the show is about to begin. As she just states, in the middle of a war, as she just says, yes. She says, these are exactly the times we need to give the people something to lift their spirits. And she just says, look at her. She'd be perfect in a show. He looks at her kind of annoyed, but she just states don't. But she just tells him not to look at her like that, and that he can have the rest of them. She only wants Rebecca. He says fine, and snaps his fingers, putting Rebecca under another form of hypnosis, telling her to be a loyal dog for Lyra and to do everything that Lyra says. And as Lyra just says, I'll wake. As Lyra just ends up saying that she is going to wake Rebecca up when they get back to the venue. She begins to walk away, telling Rebecca to follow her. As she just says, we all need to have some fun. As he just stares at Wise as he's choking himself, saying, fun, right. But it looks like my fun is almost over. As Wise's watch says, setup complete. Now, if we pay attention back at the beginning of the chapter, as Wise was thinking about what to do, he was touching his watch, which, if we all remember, is what he uses to activate his arsenal suit. As now he slams down into the ground, his watch activates, and he begins to put on his new arsenal armor, Arsenal Mark II. And the Iron Man references do not stop. Wise is literally this series' Iron Man. Again, I really love it, and I like they just added Mark II instead of just 2.0. And this is honestly a pretty sick redesign of the Arsenal because this just looks super badass, and I really, really like it. As the Ocean just states, what did you do? And Wise just says, with a sigh of relief, just says, just in the nick of time. The Ocean's wondering what he means by this, as Wise begins to explain how he basically figured out how his ether gear works. Stating that the thing he states is hypnotism is really just electrical signals. And the fact that it worked on bots is what tipped him off on it. Meaning that it's a reverse ether gear that forcibly reconfigures another person's ether. So turns out Wise has been able to piece everything together in just a few seconds with the very brief amount of information he's gotten. So I am liking that. He's one of the smartest people in this series, and I'm liking how he's using his brain to solve these problems. But his enemy then just says how is he acting like his normal self, as Wise just states that once you know it's electrical signals, it's not hard to block it. Like with the suit. Now, you must be wondering how was Wise able to activate his suit while underneath his hypnosis? And Wise explains to the guy that he had a timer function on his watch. He figured that he would be hypnotized again, so he set his watch to do an automatic requip. And now none of his hypnotic suggestions will work on him. As he states to Mascoy, Pino, and Happy that he will fix them all really soon. And he realizes Rebecca's gone, as since he was under the hypnosis, he didn't realize what was going on around him. As then the Ocean states that she was taken away by Lyra under his hypnotic spell. But then the ceiling opens up, as the enemy just states that Wise has a mechanical suit and that it's interesting. And mechanical parts begin to descend from the ceiling, as he says, "I need to have my fun too." As then, he assembles his own mech, its own giant mech suit right in front of Wise, much to his surprise. As he just states, I'm a big fan of this sort of thing, as he launches towards Wise. Now, let me just make a quick Marvel reference. Can anyone else picture this essentially being a showdown between Iron Man and Ironmonger? I mean, if this is a reference to that, thank you, Mashima. Thank you. If not, this just looks straight up amazing regardless. But yeah, I'm liking that that this basically turned into a mech fight. Anyway, Wise is grabbed and pushed right through the wall on the outside of the base, thrown onto the ceiling, and staring up at the Sea Devil, which is what this mechanical suit is called. And now we got a huge setup for a big mech battle, and I am super hyped for it. We finally get a setup for another fight, and who knows, maybe we might see Wise's overdrive in action. But yeah, that's where we end things off with Wise, as his fight against one of the members of the Oceans is set up. We then cut back to Lyra as she's in her dressing room with Rebecca, telling Rebecca to take off her clothes and so she can put on some of the other clothes that she has set up. Now, I don't know if Mashima was planning to make this fan servicey for this chapter. I mean, this is something I've come to expect from Mashima regardless. Though, whatever. It is what it is. The guy's a creator. I'm not going to criticize him on it. But anyway, Rebecca starts to strip down as Lyra just says that she'll undo the hypnotism once the show is about to begin. But just as Rebecca finishes stripping down, she goes into a daze and collapses on the ground, stating that maybe the hypnotism was a little too effective on her. As she says that she'll just change Rebecca's clothes for her, she stares at Rebecca's legs, stating that they're beautiful legs. But then we get a nice time transition panel showing Rebecca waking up in a bed asking where she is, as someone is saying Rebecca in a surprised voice, and it turns out to be Shiki saying good morning with a tear in his eye, as Rebecca's like, Shiki? But you're older. This is an older Shiki. As he begins to say that he's glad that Rebecca's awake. And Rebecca's thinking, I feel like I've had this dream before. Something like this before. And Shiki calls over for someone called Master, stating that Rebecca is awake. And it is revealed to be an older version of Master Noah, the guild master of the Blue Garden for the guild on Blue Garden, much to Rebecca's shock as to what's going on. With a moment's pause, he says, I see, in that stating that she is not the Rebecca from their time, much to Shiki and Rebecca's confusion, as now he begins to elaborate even more on Rebecca's caliber ability, saying that right now it's nothing to worry about, and that he suspects that she made an unconscious time leap, and it should just be temporary, and she should return to her time very soon. Rebecca, shocked and scared, thinking that she is in the future, and how she got there. Noah says, strictly speaking, she has currently subconsciously traveled her mind, primarily from what the looks of it, to one of the very possible futures in time. And that Rebecca specifically came to this time, and that there may be some sort of significance in it. As she just says, so Rebecca hasn't really woken up. Rebecca wonders what he means by this, as Noah says that their world's Rebecca has been in a coma, and she can't use Cat Leaper because she lost her legs. The worst possible future, as Rebecca looks down, horrified that her legs are now robotic. As we then end the chapter. My god, was this a pretty dark twist for this chapter to end that. And let's face it, one of Rebecca's best qualities is the ability to use Cat Leaper now. She is already a capable fighter, but with Cat Leaper she's been able to help her friends get out of a bunch of sticky situations. From the entire Belial Gore arc to the Foresta arc, where she used her Cat Leaper ability once or twice in order to outwit one of Nero's hunters, one of the hunters that she was facing down in a seemingly unwinnable fight. But now, something must have triggered her Cat Leaper ability to take at least her consciousness to one of the possible futures, and to that future specifically, one where her legs are gone and can't use her ether gear anymore, 100% confirming that Rebecca's ether gear is primarily in her legs, and if those go, she can't use her powers anymore. And that really did just shock the hell out of me when I first read it. And as it stated, this is the worst possible future for Rebecca personally, at least physically, as without her caliber ability, she can't get her friends out of some dead-end situations. And as to what particularly could have triggered her to get this type of future vision, to interact with with one of these possible futures, it's highly likely that when Lyra was going towards her legs and talking about them, maybe Rebecca, as she was unconscious and her Cat Leaper ability was taking her consciousness into the future, heard that, and her Cat Leaper took her to one of the possible futures involving her legs. But yeah, that is a pretty intense way to end the chapter. It's very possible that her caliber ability can only be used in these extreme circumstances to take peeks into some dark futures, and going back in time as she's living through some worst case scenario futures. Maybe that's the core way for her to activate her Cat Leaper ability. But this is honestly another very dark future for Rebecca, as one future we know of is the one where Shiki and Wise are seemingly dead, and as well as the four shining stars, and she is Draken Joe's prisoner, and there's currently some unknown things about Homura potentially working for Draken Joe right in another timeline. And before this, there was a potential other timeline where Happy was dead, and Shiki seemed a bit more battle-hardened and not too concerned about someone who had already died, and that it might have happened a long time ago. There's just so much to think about, and how Cat Leaper particularly works. With Rebecca getting another Cat Leaper type future time leap, Rebecca getting another future time leap, it's very possible this is going to tie into her having to use Cat Leaper again in this arc. But maybe in a similar way during the Belial Gore arc to help her friends get out of worst case scenarios. But right now, things aren't too bad. Yes, right now the only real tragedy is the fact that Sister and Hermit are very badly damaged, and Witch has been taken captive and is being tortured by Shura. And yes, this is a very worst case scenario, but only if they fail. Wise will most likely be able to unlock his overdrive in his battle against the Eye of Horus Sky with his Arsenal suit in tow. Homura already won her fight and should make her way towards potentially another foe and have another fight, or meet up with Shiki, who is following their directions. And Rebecca will probably return consciousness to Lyra and begin a fight with her. But yeah, this is a very interesting chapter. A lot of stuff happened, particularly by the end. I'm happy that Wise is getting his time to shine again. This new Arsenal armor looks sick as hell. I can't wait to see his overdrive, if we do get his overdrive in this arc. And I wonder what's going to go on with Rebecca, her caliper ability, and what this new potential dark future has in store, and can help her out of these particular situations right now in the Narrow 66 arc. But yeah, that's really all I got to say for this chapter. Very good chapter, really good setups, and also some really dark mysteries for us to figure out. But what did you guys think of this chapter? What do you think is the purpose of Rebecca time leaping to a future where her Cat Leaper ability is unable to be used as she has lost her legs and is in a coma in that timeline? And what do you think happened to the rest of the crew and the Eden Zero in that timeline? And what does this mean for the rest of this arc? Let me know down in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos, and don't forget to check out the Eden Zero Explained videos that I will be continuing to do, explaining certain aspects of characters and their abilities, as the series progresses. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.